All right, so what we're looking at is a Google search for this rather sophisticated noun phrase, domestic violence gun ban. And I mean, from a strictly poetic point of view, it's kind of interesting because it begins with this three-syllable adjective, and then you have a two-syllable noun, but then that three-syllable adjective, two-syllable noun itself becomes like an adjectival unit, for the next two monosyllabic words, the noun gun and the verb ban, which as a unit, forms another noun, the noun gun, and the verb ban form a kind of complex, noun unit. And anyway, like as I was saying, it's kind of interesting from a strictly poetic point of view. But what I had in mind was because in this in some of the initial pieces in this series, Notes Toward an Avant-Garde Poetry and Poetics of Regression, Transgression, Aggression, Regression, and or Digression. And now, I kind of forget why I included the word regression twice in the last, few installments of these Notes Toward. And if, I suppose, if one of my listeners and viewers and or subscribers, wants to remind me of why I may have chosen to include the word regression twice in this description rather than merely once, as would be expected, and kind of intuitively non-redundant, then maybe you can remind me through space-time travel communication coordinate, for extra credit on your BRE test, why I may have included this word regression twice. But in any case, in that initial series, as one of the responses to this abstraction, Bob, what do you think of Chelsea, which was abstracted, via my, misremembering and mishearing, or strategies of feigning, misremembering and mishearing, perhaps, if you want to go that way. But in any case, one of the ways that I responded to, the abstraction that I made of the initial much more precise and directed and contextualized question, Bob, what do you think of Chelsea as a neighborhood to live in, was that I responded by, I think, finding poems, found poems on the internet that employed or deployed perhaps the word Chelsea, and commonly it was deployed as a name, right, as the name of a person, rather than as a place. But I didn't take into account, or I didn't isolate, the way that that cluster of letters, CHE. I'll have some trouble, articulating it with my dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia continuum here, but I'll try. CHELSEA, is that right? Anyway, that cluster of letters related to whatever signifier that it might point to, whether that was a place or a person or something else. But as I was saying, the way that I responded to it was by finding these, found poems that had this word Chelsea, and then creating, these acrostic poems from elements of those particular found poems and reading them, somewhat spontaneously, one after the other, and I believe, again, if memory doesn't fail me once again here, as it did in attempting to remember why I included the word regression in Notes Toward an Avant-Garde Poetry and Poetics of Regression, Transgression, Aggression, and or Digression twice. I had misidentified the acrostic, the word acrostic, in describing the structural constraints of my improvisations with the word anagrammatic, and I guess that that error is, and describing that error is somewhat of a digression, because I don't think it really leads us anywhere. But they were acrostics, and the acrostic the acrostic motivator, right, was this string of letters C, H, E, L, S, E, A, the word Chelsea, and I thought because that one began with this idea of acrostics, but we've been recently working, for whatever reason that we've been working with this idea of mESOSTiCS, and mESOSTiCS that are motivated by a different string of letters. That in the case of our mESOSTiCS, we've been motivated by the letters SHADOWS, shadows, right? And so I thought, bringing some of the recent work and some of the older work and some of this series and that series together, that I would continue with Notes Towards an Avant-Garde Poetry and Poetics of Regression, Transgression, Aggression, once again regression and or digression, by creating a string of these acrostic poems, but this time using the letric motivation SLUggO, which the motivation for which should be obvious, and rather than looking up on the internet poems, poems that have the word SLUggO, I could put SLUggO poems in the search and generate, perhaps a string of, found poems, and then create a mESOSTiC, based on that series of letters, SLUggO. But rather than doing that, I chose to, I think, again, for reasons that should be obvious, enter this term, domestic violence gun ban, which, as my my active and engaged readers and viewers will recall, which this long interesting noun phrase, right, is now before the Supreme Court. And here are some examples of what is generated by a search for domestic violence gun ban at this time, right, at this particular moment in historical time, right, if you believe in either history or time, which some physicists don't, apparently, these days, particularly space-time. But of course, what we do has so much to do with space-time and coordinates in space-time and the use of coordinates in space-time that it would be absurd for us to imagine that space-time was, mere fantasy, since we use it in the same way that we use our shoes every day, right? Like people say that it's like they have a belief, but those things that we actually use every day, we don't believe in our shoes. We just put them on and we use them. So in much the same way we use space-time, in our space-time travel communication coordinates. In any case, this is what's generated, like at this moment, or, within like a duration of a particular segment of time that has begun, somewhere, probably more than 2 days ago, but obviously, continues into the present and will continue into the future, or this wouldn't be up today, right? So within that context of that duration of space-time, typing this, interestingly poetic, noun phrase into a Google search engine, generates these results as websites that we can access. And these websites have textual communication, and from that textual communication, we will be able to generate, fragments of lines that utilize as the sort of like central, right, fulcrum or central, I don't know what we want to call it, anyway, that utilize as the kind of vertical load-bearing, semiot, like as in, semiotics, or I don't know what we want to call it, but Roman Jakobson had this this construct of the dominant in his analysis of literature, and the dominant wasn't exactly like a structure, but neither was it, merely thematic, but it was, like sort of that, mechanics by which, the whole, piece was held together. And in this instance, the architectural, dominant is this, vertical mesostic, line that is constructed from the letters SLUGGO, in a certain way, I suppose, but then, how, SLUGGO, as we've represented SLUGGO, this sort of, violently unintelligent and violent individual, prone to, abuse his spouse and act out, in certain ways that are, detrimental to the well-being of those he comes in contact. Now, this construct of SLUGGO isn't, merely from the Nancy comics, but, from the way that the contract in V through Theta, has articulated this character within a series of memes or cartoons or plagiarisms, or however you want to define them. And but that right, that version of SLUGGO, we could say is the dominant that constitutes this this element of the mesostic that we're going to create, a series of. And then I thought that rather than reading them myself, because I actually textually compose them, so it won't be an improvisation, a verbal improvisation, in the same way that the Chelsea poems were, the acrostic poems that I misidentified as anagrammatical poems, but it will be rather composed from the textual elements of these, of these discourses from these various sites. I can scroll down and I can demonstrate that there are more than just a few of them. Oops, maybe I can't scroll down and demonstrate that. Let me go back and see what we've got going on here. I seem to have a scroll bar problem. Or scroll, oh, there we go. All right, so from these various results, we'll compose, a series of SLUGGO motivated mESOSTiCS, and then I was thinking that I would have Aaron read, from this series rather than reading them myself, which, you know, adds, you know, kind of another dimension to it, because Aaron is kind of interesting in the way that, you know, he reads and misidentifies certain kinds of words sometimes, and that adds, you know, another layer to it. And, you know, perhaps the whole AI thing adds another layer to it as well. So you can see there's quite a bit available to choose from. Now, I've spent, you know, quite a bit of time talking about the method for construction here, and then like my intention of what a reading would look like. So we may not be able to get to the actual performance of the reading and the presentation of the texts that are generated by, you know, by this work today, but we'll see how far we get, and if not today, you know, perhaps, you know, tomorrow we'll have the results, and Aaron can perform a reading.